Alrighty, so we will go ahead and get started. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. We have joining us today career advisor Karina from the Career Professional Development Services. So I will let Karina introduce herself and then you can go ahead and get started, Karina. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. So hi, everyone. My name is Karina. As Abby mentioned, I'm a career advisor working at the Poly campus, but I also do online advising as well. I've been with the CPDS team for about 7 months now. So it's great to be here with you all. And I hope that you all like this interview. And just so you know, I'm open to you interrupting me at any time for questions or anything like that. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay, perfect. All right, so we're gonna get started. So what we're gonna talk about today is preparing for your next interview. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how to prepare for your interview, a little bit more tips about first impressions, the types of interviews there are, how to dress for success, what to do during the interview, and what to do after the interview as well. So how to prepare. So here are some tips that we have on how to prepare for your future interviews. So one of those tips is research yourself and the employer. What I mean by that is, so we want you all to also do some research on yourself, because we want to make sure that, for example, your social media and all of that stuff is doesn't have anything that could hinder your chances to getting the job, right? So it's important to research yourself, see what's on your social media, etc., your LinkedIn page, everything like that. And also research the employer, right? So what that means is research the company, what's their mission, what do they do, who do they work with, who you're going to be interviewing as well, all that stuff, right? It's very important to know who you're going to interview with and most importantly about the company, right? Because that's something they usually ask in the interview sometimes. So, and it's good for you to have all that information. Also, you have to think of questions to ask, meaning when the interview ends, right? They usually ask you, like, do you have any questions for us, right? So we want to make sure that you have some questions prepared for that time. And then decide what to bring, meaning if it's in person or if it's a phone interview, if it's online, it depends, right? But if it's in person, like maybe you need to bring your resume or an extra copy of it or a notepad or some water, etc., right? So decide what you bring to your interview. And the last tip, and I think one of the most important ones, is practice. Practice interviewing is so important, because usually when students ask me like, oh, like, I don't know, what is the best way to prepare? And I always say practice. Practice makes perfect, right? So literally just maybe writing down some interview questions they might ask you, and then just talking in your room by yourself, doesn't matter, or recording yourself, right? That helps a lot. And then, so first impressions matter, right? We know that when you're in an interview, you might be a little bit nervous, or you might be just a little bit anxious about it, and that's totally fine, right? But we have to think about, like, what does the employer want, right? What if you were an employer, what would you be looking for in a person that you want to hire, right? So we want to make sure that we're dressed right, that we're wearing the attire that fits like the position we're going for, or the company we're going to interview with. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But like, as I was saying, it's important to think about putting yourself in the position of the employer. So managing your digital footprint. This goes back to what I was mentioning at the beginning, with thinking about, like, what do you have in your social media, etc., right? And I think in some weeks you will have a presentation about LinkedIn and how to create your LinkedIn profile. And that's going to help you out a lot, because a lot of employers, a lot of recruiters do want to look at your LinkedIn. So we want to make sure that if you're comfortable with it, you have one, you create one, and another one of my colleagues will talk to you more about that. So let's talk a little bit about the types of interviews. So as we know, like right now, a lot of things have changed, right? And we have a lot of more technology, and also more people are open to doing virtual interviews, etc., or even recorded ones, right? So I want to talk a little bit about some tips about the different types of interviews that you might have, and what tips we have for each one of them. So for the phone interview, you want to make sure that you're in a quiet and comfortable place, right? You want to be confident that you have a strong phone signal, because that really can be, that just sometimes makes you a lot more anxious, right? Where you cannot hear the person or they cannot hear you. So you want to make sure that you have everything set up to be ready and not have that problem. Also have a writing surface to take notes, because maybe they ask you questions and you have to write it down, or you might have a follow-up question, right? So you want to make sure that you have that on your hand. And the good thing about phone interviews is that they're not seeing you, right? So you have a little bit more space to maybe be more comfortable, or have your notes with you, etc., right? So that's something that's good about phone interviews. And also, like I said, you can keep some notes on hand, like your resume, the job description close by, etc., so you can use that during your interview as well. So then we have the in-person interview. So this one, I think that this is the one that gives students or anyone the most anxiety, right? Or the most, it makes you a little bit more nervous. That's totally fine. And the employers always understand, right? So some things that you can do to make yourself get ready for that is show up early, between 10-15 minutes early, just in case anything happens, right? Also refresh yourself before checking in, maybe go to the restroom, drink some water, just to make sure that you're ready for the interview. Also, like I said, you can take some water, a notepad, extra copies of your resume as well. And it's very important to dress appropriately, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Greet everyone and be friendly, and take your time when speaking. It's really important to be friendly when you're in that in-person environment, even if it's to the person who's receiving you, right? The assistant or whoever that is, because that can totally mess up your chances if you're not really being friendly to everyone. And like I said, take your time when speaking. Like I said, I know sometimes we're nervous, but like I said before, practice, right? So if you know that you've practiced and you've done what you need to do to get ready, you'll probably be less nervous in that moment, and you'll be able to speak a little bit more freely and not have a lot of, a lot of time in between your answers, or you're not going to be thinking about them in the moment, right? You're going to be ready for it. So the virtual environment, and this one applies for the virtual interviews or the recorded ones. So find a quiet place with appropriate lighting, find a neutral background or blank wall behind you, keep your technology connected so you're sure that your computer is not gonna die in that moment, right? Prep your tech, make sure that you have a good signal, Wi-Fi, etc. Consider using headphones so that you have better audio as well. Sit upright in a chair, right? And preferably at a desk or table, and dress as if you were meeting in person, meaning we want you to feel like you're in a real interview, like as if you were in person, right? So dressing as if you were there, that helps out a lot as well, because it makes you feel like you're ready, you're prepared, etc., right? So dressing as if you were there is very important, because sometimes if you want to do it, maybe if it's recorded in a very casual, or like maybe your pajamas or whatever that is, that can maybe not help you feel as if you were ready for an interview, right? So you want to do that as well. So like I said, the environment is very important in this instance. And I want to ask you all, what types of interview have you had, and like what has made you the most nervous about them? I don't know if anyone wants to unmute and participate.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it if that's
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I've had phone interviews, in person, and virtual, so I've kind of been all across the board, I guess. I think the thing that makes me most nervous for all of them is, let's see, think the questions that they're gonna ask, there's usually like one or two that are the same, but I always worry, what if they ask a question and I'm not able to answer, or if
Mhm.
I answered it quote unquote correctly and like I don't give the proper answer, and it's just like kind of fearing the unknown a little bit, but preparing beforehand, having my resume, kind of going back through it and remembering like, oh, this is something I did in this job, I should mention that. Or, oh, this is something I recently did that I'm really proud of, I should mention that. That's what helps me feel a little more confident and prepared.
Thank you. Thank you, Abigail. Yeah, for sure. And I completely understand that fear of the unknown, right? And what I always tell students about interviews to make them a little bit less nervous is this interview is also for you, right? For you to know that that you really want to be in that company, that you want to be in that role, etc. So sometimes it's more for you than for the employer. So think about that as well. And that usually helps you a little bit calming your nerves as well, right? But yes, I mean, we can prepare all we want, but of course we're not gonna know like which questions they're gonna ask us. But the good thing about practicing is, like you said, you'll be ready, and also you have maybe think about like the stories that you want to tell, right? Or about the situations you want to talk about. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment as well. But does anyone else want to participate?
I would say one thing that always tends to stress me out when I am in an interview is sometimes I tend to get really scattered because I get excited when I'm talking to an interviewer, and so every once in a while my brain will just be going at a million miles an hour, and I need to, you know, kind of slow it down a little bit to be able to like structure what exactly I want to like get across to my interviewer and just what I want to tell them.
Yeah, thank you, Madison. Yeah, of course. And sometimes what usually and can help in something as little as, hey, you know, let's take a breather, right? Let's breathe deep and then continue, right? It's okay, we pause. It's okay to have a moment of silence in the interview. That's not gonna make it be bad or anything like that, right?
And Karina, I did have in the chat too, someone had mentioned that they never know how to describe or talk about themselves either. So that might be another stressor or something kind of causing that anxiety before an interview.
Yes, and I'll talk about this in a second as well. So yes, thank you, Abby. All right, so let's move forward. So what I was talking about, dress for success. So you want to research the expectations the employers have of how you should dress for the interview. You can ask the recruiter if you don't know, and always go with clean and well-fitting clothing, right? So I have like some different types of what we usually know as the types of dress or dressing or etc. Right? Like sometimes they might tell you you have to go business professional. That means a suit, right? Or something that's really, I know that this might not be something that it's really like worn now, because I feel like companies are more open to other types of a little bit more casual types of dressing now. But this is something that you can ask, and if they tell you business professional, then you have to go with a little bit more professional look. If they say business casual, then you might want to go for like something a little bit more dressed down, but still wearing some closed-toe shoes, maybe clean clothes, right, etc. And then we have casual, right? Maybe you can go in jeans, maybe not, etc. But I always would avoid maybe open-toe shoes, etc., all of this kind of stuff, or wearing something that might not be fit for an interview. And I feel like we also have a resource in our webpage that I'll show you in a little bit about these tips of how to dress for each of the different types of dressing that they tell you. And like I said, always make sure, if you're in doubt, as the recruiter or as the person that you're talking to, that you're going to interview, about how you should dress for this. So we're going to go into the types of questions, and here I'm going to answer what Abby was mentioning that someone said in the chat about talking about yourself, right? So the different types of questions that there usually are the traditional questions, behavioral, and the technical ones. So traditional questions are the tell me about yourself, right? So for these questions, you should be enthusiastic, make your answers demonstrate how you are committed to the position and your experience and interests align with the role. So here's what you want to tell a story about yourself, right? And we actually have, so let me see if I can pull it up right now. So we have I want to show you, so because this I think will help answer the question that someone had. So this is our webpage, just so you all know. But if we go here on interview and preparation, so we have something called crafting your career story. Oh wait, but this is not the one. Give me a second. So let me go in here. Okay, so it's powerful introduction is this one. So this resource, it helps you a little bit with creating. So we use this resource, for when you're doing networking as well. But this one, it can help you out a lot with creating that story that you want to tell about yourself, right? So telling your name, what you're interested in, what you have experience in, what your strengths are, and what are you looking for, right? So just helping you build out that story about yourself can help you a little bit in that area. And you want to go for the professional, right? In this question, right? Because some people think that maybe talking about yourself means talking about your whole life story, right? But the interviewers are more interested in your professional role, right? So yes, I will share that link in the chat for sure. So like I said, it's important to practice that as well, and just practice talking about yourself. And even just if you want to go maybe doing some practice like to a networking event, right? Or to another presentation, etc., where you talk about this, that can help out a lot with being comfortable about talking about yourself and what you've done, right? Because that's what they want to hear. They want to know about you. They want to know what you've done and want to know how what have you done that has demonstrated that you are ready for this position, right? So those are the recommendations for this types of question. So sorry about that. Then we have the behavioral question. So this usually start with tell me about a time when, right? Or tell me about when you did this, etc. So for this type of question, we use something called the STAR method. I don't know if anyone has heard about it before.
We utilize the STAR method as a reflection piece within the Work Plus program. So for any of you that are on the call that may be in level 2, this should start to sound a little familiar as we get into the storytelling piece within our level 2 of the Work Plus program. So absolutely, Karina, we're on the right track.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So yeah, so maybe most of you already know this, but you know, the STAR method is about saying like the situation, where did it happen, the task, right? What was the problem or issue, action, what part did you play, and what was the result or outcome of it? And I remember I had one of my one person from the leadership team tell me like sometimes I even have like 4 fingers, like maybe just like in my hand, and I'm thinking about, okay, did I already say a situation? And I put a finger down the task, the action, the result, right? When they ask me those questions. And that could be a little tip for you all to help you with answering those questions as well. Because I think that way you'll know that you're not forgetting anything. But like I said, this comes with practice as well, right? So that's what I was mentioning about having stories ready. These types of questions can help you a lot with that, right? With thinking about what can you talk about when they ask you about these things. And finally, we have the technical questions. So these ones are designed to test your knowledge in a particular software, theory, process, or equipment. These are very specific to the type of role that you want to go for, right? So for this, I always recommend students just researching a little bit like types of questions for a nursing job or types of questions for a management role, etc., right? And that way you'll know like what types of questions are usually asked for those particular positions. And that way you can practice those a little bit more and think about a little bit more about like the content, or maybe if you're going for a job that's like very content specific, like something in science or STEM, etc. Think about what they're asking you. So like, what does the job description say the job is for, etc. So that way you'll know like what kinds of questions they might ask you in this area. All right, so now I would like to practice a little bit with answering these types of questions. So we have any volunteers, they might want to go ahead and unmute or share in the chat. So let's go with the first question. It says, describe a situation in which you went above and beyond expectations. So who would like to give it a try? And I'm putting you all on the spot, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about it. I just want us to practice doing this. So if anyone wants to go.
I can go ahead.
Yeah, of course.
So I would say a situation where I went above and beyond expectations. I currently am the VP of communications for my sorority, and one of my big tasks is sending out newsletters twice a week to every member in the chapter. And so when I first got the position, they were like, oh, here's the email template to use, just super easy, plug it all in and just send it out twice a week. But, you know, in my personal experience as receiving the newsletter, just as another member of the chapter, I was like, okay, I think it's time to go ahead and, you know, switch things up a little bit. So I spent a lot of time over our winter break, just kind of shifting the formatting of all of our communication channels, and especially that newsletter, just to make it more optimized and more fun to read for all the members.
Thank you. That was perfect, Madison. You touched all the points that I was mentioning. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I really like that you are telling a story, right? I think that's what's important about this types of questions. Just remember, you're telling your story and you're talking about things you've done. You're talking about yourself. So who knows you better than you, right? So I think that's important to remember as well. So who wants to go ahead with the tell me about yourself question?
While we're thinking on this, I'm gonna let everybody still think on this. I don't want to jump over this, but just a reminder and to kind of bring context back with the Work Plus program. As you're going through both level 1 and level 2, you should be filling out your Work Plus accomplishment tracker. And what that tracker is designed to do is to help you build out these different stories and be well rehearsed in that. As Karina's saying, you know, practice makes perfect. So having these stories just already, you know, mapped out in your mind, so you're not having to sit there and have these like, ooh, what is a moment? What did happen there? So that's what the Work Plus accomplishment tracker is designed for. We're here to help you start crafting out that story and having these ready to go.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Abby. And it's okay if no one wants to go with. I know this question is a little bit intimidating, right? But it's just to practice a little bit. Or if anyone wants to take a stab at the third question, describe your experience using software or technology used in your field. You can also put it in the chat if you would want.
Okay, I can go ahead and go again if you want.
Thank you, Madison. Yeah, of course.
Of course, of course. So I would say an experience with a software technology that I had to learn somewhat recently, kind of over the summer, or at least kind of get better at it, was Salesforce. Abby and I both use that a lot for our supervisor emails. And it was something that I was totally unfamiliar with. So just kind of, you know, getting in there and poking around, I was able to develop that supervisor email and just kind of learn a little bit more about all of the little intricacies. And now feel like I'm very well versed in it. I meant to go and get my LinkedIn certification as well, just to have that put on my LinkedIn account. But yeah, I would say that's one of the most recent experiences with technology that I've been using.
Thank you, Madison. Of course, yeah. And I think Salesforce is a great example, right? And because as I mentioned, technology and software doesn't just mean like whoever is, if for people who are in STEM or in those kinds of fields, right? There are many types of technologies and softwares that we have to learn and use for different types of jobs. So like maybe even if you're working in the serving industry, right? You're using technology there as well to like, when people have to pay, etc., or when you have to get the bill for the person or for your table, etc. So those are also important aspects that you may want to talk about because you're learning new technology, right? So let me go ahead and move forward. So we're going into the end of this presentation. So what happens at the end of the interview, right? They usually are going to ask you like, what questions do you have? So some of the questions that we usually recommend students ask is like things about the company, the culture, what keeps you motivated. Like you can ask whoever's interviewing you those questions. We don't really recommend asking about like pay or salary or benefits, etc. You might want to wait until you get your offer to ask those questions, or maybe make a counter offer or negotiate your salary, etc. Right? So you want to go for more open-ended questions and things more about the job in general than about those benefits. And remember to follow up. So express your gratitude, send a follow-up email, right? Restate your enthusiasm in the position and your confidence as well. And then you can confirm or deny your interest in the position if they make you an offer as well. So it's very important, like I say, practice. So how can you practice interviewing, or what do we offer for you all to practice interviewing? So we have something called Interview Stream, which is a platform. So let me go ahead and show that to you as well. So if we go back to our webpage on here and go into interviewing preparation, we can go ahead and see we have here something called virtual practice interviews. So we can access this resource on here. And you would just log in with your ASU email, right? And then we have, so this is the platform that I was talking about. And we go here into prepare. You're going to be able to see different resources that we have. And then you can go into, so let me go here. And here you can view like different resources that we have on tips, etc., on interviewing. And then we have a conduct one. So here is where you can start practicing. So here we have a section for practice interviews, and you can take a pre-made interview. So for example, if we go on here, you're going to be able to see different interviews that are already made. So different for different positions. And you can view the questions on here. And then what you're going to do is to start the interview, and you're going to be able to record yourself answering these questions. So that's going to help you out a lot with your confidence, with being more comfortable with answering those questions and being able to talk more freely, right? About yourself and about the job, etc. So let's see. Oh, thank you, Abby, for sharing. So yeah, this is one of the resources that we have for you. So also as advisors, we do offer an interview prep appointment where we can talk more about the tips that we have for you, or where you can schedule a mock interview, meaning that you can do an interview with us. So for example, I would interview you as if I was the employer, right? And that way you can practice like a live interview, and then I would give you feedback on your answers. So that's also something that we offer so that you can take advantage of it as well. And also maybe meet with a mentor if you have a mentor, right? Or you have someone that that you talk to and you view as a mentor, that can also help with talking about yourself, with practicing some questions, etc. So those are the tips that I think would help you out the most with practicing interviews. So really take advantage of this, because it's so important to practice. And all of this is free to you all. So I think that's amazing as well. So please make sure to take advantage of it when you're getting ready to do an interview. So yeah, that is what we have for you today. And I'm open right now to questions. Yes.
We do have one in the chat asking
Okay.
how they can schedule an appointment for the same.
For the interview prep.
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. So all of the.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So all of our appointments, you're gonna be able to make it Handshake. So I don't know if you all have heard of Handshake or have been in Handshake, but this is where we have all of our appointments. So we would just go ahead and log in here. So right now it's going to show you probably my view, but let me switch. So just give me a second. Yes, so this is what you would all see when you log into Handshake or when you open Handshake. And then so we have a section here for, so just so you know, Handshake is also a job board. So you can search for jobs on here as well. But here where it says Career Center is where you would go in here, and then you would click on appointments. And there's here you would do schedule a new appointment, and then you're going to see like the list of different types of appointments we have. So maybe you would go into all students, and then here you have like the types of appointments we have. And we have here the prepare for an interview run, right? So this is where you can schedule an appointment, and we have a lot of different types of appointments as well in here. Yeah, of course. So does anyone else have any other questions?
Sure. I mean, I just really a question, but I just wanted to let other students know. I know some people have been like moving away from Handshake and using more like the LinkedIn or other platforms like that, but I honestly have been finding a lot of really great opportunities on Handshake. I could not recommend it enough, especially, you know, just kind of getting, you know, once you get all of your profile completely filled out, things are pretty much like, I get emails about things that are specifically like things that I'm interested in, and like any messages from recruiters or anything like that about career fairs. It's a really great resource, and I would definitely recommend everyone give it a try.
Thank you, Madison. Yes, Handshake has everything on there. Like Madison said, we also have on there our events, our virtual career fairs or in-person career fairs as well. So those are so good to attend, honestly, maybe even just to get a head start or start seeing like what companies have to offer, or talking to a recruiter, etc., asking them questions. It's so important to do that as well. And like I said, all of these resources are free for you all as students. So please take advantage of them while you're still a student, because when you become an alumni, it's a little bit maybe it could be a little bit less available for you all, but definitely take advantage of it and of Handshake as well. Does anyone else have another question?
If we don't have any other questions, then Karina, I believe, as you said, we are finishing up here today. So if you don't have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and log off and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will send an email that, again, just has those links that Karina kind of walked us through today so that you can access those again. But otherwise, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today, and happy Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event, which Karina did mention will be in November. And that one is all about building your online presence. So that LinkedIn profile, what we should have on it, what we shouldn't have on it, that kind of thing. So I hope to see you all again next month. Again, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.